people will say, they'll say, look, I don't wanna do a lot of exercise, I don't want my immune system to get weak, you know, I'm already sick, I've already had these problems. Well, this is the thing, the people who are gonna get weakened immune systems, are those people who are probably at the highest level of athleticism. And they're doing this for 6 to 8 weeks where they're at this high level where they're burning 10,000 calories a day and they're consuming that much too. And finally they get to a point where they have to kind of, you know, get to a rest or recovery stage. So what it says here is yes and no, only extreme training does the immune system weaken. Moderate exercise will cause an immediate boost to immunity because of a tilt to decrease cells that allow for inflammation. So we don't really see that. And so if I want you to understand that when people ask you, well, is this gonna hurt me? I've heard exercise will weaken me, I might catch the flu, you know, it's flu season. Listen, you might catch the flu anyways. You might fill in the blank, whatever. Anyways, exercise is not gonna inhibit your immune system, at least not to the level of what the lay community is going to do. The American College of Sports Medicine also states that several 10-minute bouts, this is just a reiteration of what I just said, of exercise a day can be equivocal to that of one 60-minute or one whatever. 10 minutes is enough to get everything going. Now, it's not the best, it's not optimal, but it's there and it works, and we still see benefits from it. So what is our mode? This involves our large muscle groups activated rhythmically, aerobically, and in steady state. Remember, this is all about oxidative phosphorylation, so we have to get it to a steady state. Running, walking, swimming, cycling, cross-country skiing. I don't know if anybody in here has ever tried cross-country skiing. Probably the most physically demanding thing out there is cross-country skiing. It's incredibly demanding. I mean, it takes large movements from all parts of your body. It's incredible. The closest that I would even imagine, I mean, like, if you skied before, you know what kind of impact it had on your legs. You were like, your quads were broke off the next day, right? Because of all these eccentric contractions, you're going down the slopes, you know, and you're moving a lot of your legs. Even water skiing is hard on your legs too, you know. But, I mean, like, snow skiing can really give you a pounding. Now think about how you're using your arms to dig and to move, because cross-country skiing is not all downhill. A lot of cross-country skiing is uphill. If you've ever watched it in the Olympics, it's incredible to watch these guys go up these hills, these climbs that they're going up, and they're just digging their poles, like this right here.
I don't even know how that works. I don't even know how that's possible. But if you're going up, you're gonna wanna, it's gonna take a lot, you're gonna.
Physics, right? And you're going against physics. I know, that's why it's tough. It's literally, it's an incredible workout.
I don't see, yeah, because I mean, there's no friction, so you're just going.
There's nothing to fight to except for the
Yeah.
pole, yeah. You're just having to keep it going.
I don't like.
So you're moving yourself, and imagine what your core is having to do to get that body up there. It's just an incredibly demanding sport, and you know, I commend those people who do that. So if you live in the north and you want to exercise, guess what you're gonna do? Cross-country ski. These guys are fit. But these are our modes that we can use, and there are other modes. You know, I have a lot of people, because I've gotten into swimming in the last year and a half, have talked to me about swimming, and does it really do a lot physically? And I tell them, look, I'm trying to do as little physically and move as fast as possible. So I'm not in there really trying to get a workout as much as I'm trying to get, you know, streamlined and hydrodynamic and fast. But there is a whole component to swimming that can be huge benefits. All of you have probably spent quite a bit of time in the pool, and so you understand buoyancy. And you understand kind of like grabbing a floaty, and you just can't stand it. You got to try to submerge the floaty, right? You know, it's just part of it. And so there are a lot of benefits to being in the water. In fact, if I were going to go and open a clinic today, the very first thing I would make sure I had was at least 2 big SwimX pools,
Well, there's a lot of people
first
that
thing.
can't.
But I wouldn't even look at an ultrasound until I had 2 SwimX pools. In fact, I wouldn't look at an ultrasound until like the very bitter end, and I'd be like, I guess I better buy one of these things.
Put it in your closet.
Yeah, it could be in the closet, unplugged.
There's
sorry,
a
go
lot
ahead.
of people that can't do, like their exercises outside of water.
No, there, when you see some of the neuro patients going into the water, wow. I mean, you take a person and you put a float belt on them, and you take them out into deep water, and you see them doing some stuff, and they're, man, holy smokes. And I've done, I really had an interest in this, and I bought the float belt and did some pool running. It was a heck of a workout. Yeah, and I just jumped in there, wore my heart rate monitor, got my heart rate up, and did my thing. And it was fantastic. And this is what people can do. I mean, you have non-weight bearing patients, guess what? They're floating, they're non-weight bearing. Yeah? I mean, as long as they don't have like something in there that like they you know, their incisions have to be healed, and they, you know, they can't have a ORIF or anything like that, but look at what they can do. So we don't get into pool therapy in here. I really should put a component in here, but it's really hard to get into the pool. I mean, with 20 people too. I mean, I'd have to break it up into 2 groups, reserve the pool, it's just a lot. But I should do that. I guess that's more me than you. Exercise program and prescription. Remember specificity, and we haven't talked about specificity yet, we're about to. Patient safety and how important it is to demonstrate. So what I want to do right now is look at page 249, and I want to talk about specificity. I hear a lot of people saying, I mean, I engage a lot of kids who are like, man, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to tear up this bike at 5K. I'm like, cool. How should I train for that? I said, well, you got to run. Well, I'll run a little bit, but I really want to go to the weight room. Those 2 things don't work. I mean, it's just not the same type of stuff. Wouldn't you say that the weight room is not the same as running? And so clearly you can see where things have to be very focused. And if a person says, this is what I need to be doing, then you have to articulate your program, your TheraX program, to the specificity of the goals. And a lot of times, aerobic conditioning goes to more the goals of what the patient wants or needs, and less about what, you know, a PT is writing for a certain movement goal. Unless they're riding for a certain distance, they want that patient to be able to walk further or for longer or for more time. And so we look at it as what is the goal of the patient after they're dismissed from therapy or after they're discharged. Because they could have different goals. It could be very important for someone who works at CV's to be able to walk 22 miles, right? I mean, that's what you're telling me. So I need to be able to say, okay, well, to get them back to their prior level of function, clearly we need to be doing a lot of stuff that gets them back to that functional capacity. Yeah? What's specificity? Specificity is related to the specificity of training, refers to adaptations in metabolic and physiological systems depending on the demand imposed. Oh, where have we heard those words before? There you go. So your SAID principle, which drives everything, now has to drive what? It has to meet your goals. And if it doesn't meet your goals, then it didn't work. If I am working with a person and all I have them doing is strength training, and they need to be able to walk around the store, and yes, they need strength, right? Because they're gonna have to pick up boxes of bleach, or dog food pack, you know, I mean, there's some definite power and strength to be involved, but they also need that longer conditioning and endurance. So if we look at some of these things, the 4 things that result from specificity: muscle strength without a significant increase in total oxygen consumption, aerobic or endurance training without training the anaerobic systems, anaerobic training without training the aerobic system. So what we're doing is we're finite making a plan to say we're going to do this, and this is our specificity right here. It doesn't help me a lot to lift weights when I don't care about strength as much as I care about endurance. It doesn't help Blake to run when he doesn't care much about conditioning, he cares about strength. It just doesn't. I mean, you're talking about two very different things. So we have to be very specific about what we're doing. If you cruise on down, you'll look at a new word called reversibility. And reversibility is, what I want you to catch about the definition here is this. The effects of training are transient. I didn't even look at the book to say it, because this definition rings so true. The effects of training are transient unless what? What does it say right there? Nobody's with me. I'm on page 249.
They don't say the answer, you know, what you just said.
Reversible effects are transient and reversible.
Flip that page. Look, the last little bullet underneath there. Let me give you this big, nice definition. The frequency or duration of physical activity required to maintain a certain level of aerobic fitness is less than that required to improve it. You know what this whole thing says? If you don't use it, you lose it. That's what it says. And it says it's a heck of a lot easier to maintain it than it is to try to get it back. I mean, how many of us in here are adults? Everybody but Brittany, but aren't you the youngest? You just turned 21. I don't even remember 21. Such an age.
I don't think I ever was.
We're like, what, 21? So there is this thing about once you get to be an adult, you're like, holy smokes, and you pull out this picture when you're in high school and you were like glistening, you know, and you're like, man, I need to get back to that. And you're like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. That's just terribly a large amount of time and work, and I'll take up golf. And that's just easier. And so the thing is it's very difficult to get back to where you were. Now think about a patient. Specifically, think about our ACL that's coming in. This kid was as fit as he's ever been. Now, I'm not saying he's as fit as he's ever going to be. I'm saying he's as fit as he's ever been. He's a senior in high school. Man, he's got low body fat, high body muscle. You know, he's walking around here, he's glistening. But now, what is he going to do? Everything in his body is starting to atrophy, right? If he had visible abdominal musculature 4 weeks ago, he probably does not now. In 4 weeks, because he was way up here with his activity level, he was probably way up here with his caloric intake, and now what's happening? This is still probably still up here, because this is hard to get in, you know, we can't put a rope around this very well. But this went, like, not just like close to the bottom, it is on the bottom.
So he's gonna look like me in about another 4 weeks.
I don't know.
You said
We
it.
gotta do something for him.
So what can we expect, though? This kid has a goal, he wants to play baseball in the spring. And I've seen this happen a lot. They tear their ACL in football, they're back for baseball in the spring, and that blows me away. You know, because some people can do that. Now, if we look at reversibility, though, we know that he can get back to that point, because it says right there that in the first statement, the beneficial effects of exercise training are transient and reversible. But what we know is that they can come back. We can reverse reversibility, right? We can get that back. But it takes a long time. It's harder to get it back even now because he is starting from such a low level. Some of the things that are going to happen to his body, we're going to look at here in just a minute. But look at this. Detraining occurs rapidly when a person stops exercising. After only 2 weeks, of detraining, significant reductions in work capacity can be measured. Now, I like that this comes up, but 2 weeks. I read an article in Rudder's World over the weekend that said that a person can stop running because of illness or injury, and they will lose virtually nothing for 2 weeks. They can return during the 3rd week as long as injury or illness has subsided and they have no effects from it. And they can have a modified 1 week to return, and then they can resume normal, this was in marathon training, they can resume normal marathon training and after that 3rd week, to right to the level they were, and have no risk of further injury or further illness occurring. And they're usually right back where they want to be. So it's possible that these small little glitches in our ebbs and flows of training don't matter. It's just not that big of a deal. But when we are down for longer than that, I mean, the average ankle sprain that I see takes kids out for typically around 3 weeks. So it's around a week and a half is my magical time where I've got to start engaging them back into some kind of a conditioning program. Hopefully one that is acceptable and specific, right, for these kids. A college basketball player does not need to be on an arm bike, do they? What does that do for them? It gets them aerobically up here, right? But in the whole scheme of things, is it specific? No. I really need to be looking at 10 to 14 days, they gotta start going again. Not in basketball, but at least what? What's important for them? They may not, I can't return them to contact drills because they're, doing this on an ankle that has not even went through proliferation. Do you remember what proliferation is? Some of you from care prevention, you're like, I remember that word. It's 2 to 4 weeks. I'm basically getting only granulation tissue. It's like a scab. I need it to convert to collagen to scarring soon, so I don't want to tear that scab off and, start from square one again, right? But from this magical window of 10 to 14 days, if I can get them back, maybe not playing basketball, but what's a component that's specific? Running. Jogging, slowly. And a lot of that depends on how they can tolerate it, right? Maybe I'm in there taping that ankle or putting a brace on and saying, we're doing straight line jogging. I take them to a track.
Could you put them on an exercise bike sooner?
I might try the bike a little soon, yeah, but the bike sometimes is a good entry or a pathway to getting back on the run because it's getting their legs moving, but nothing emulates running like running. Now, what did I talk about earlier? Remember the pool? Remember putting them in the deep end of the pool with their belt on? I could have them run all day probably. Now their ankle will get sore. Let's not be foolish about this. Their ankle will be sore from running. Even in the pool, it'll probably be sore because that's a very different type of thing. But I can control the soreness with my modalities. Like what? I can ice them. I can TENS them. I can ultrasound them. Yep. I can take it with me to the pool and do it while they're running, right? I'm gonna do your whole body. You're gonna feel great. The idea though is I can probably modulate the pain. Yeah. I mean, I have things for that, but I'm working on their conditioning, and I would almost venture to say, well, let's put them out there and let's take some soreness for an extra week to keep their conditioning going. Hold them out. That's even better because it's giving their body more time to heal that ligament before we return them. I just returned a kid to Poto High School football. He played Friday night, had a hip flexor strain, an iliopsoas, rectus femoris strain, and those are like the bane of my existence. I can't stand those. Those are the hardest because they're so huge on an athlete. I mean, it's just, you strain a muscle right there, holy smokes. It's hard to get them back. So we go 3 weeks. First week was rest. Week 2, same thing, but we started doing some active range motion. I had him start doing straight leg raises. And I'll never forget that first set of straight leg raises. We did this at about, it was close to 10 days before I let him start doing this. But I remember that first set, he was like, oh my gosh, I said, does it hurt? He said, no, it's just sweet. Then he did a second set and he was like, this isn't hard at all now. It was almost like that first set was like the alarm clock, and the second set was, I had a sip of coffee, and I'm finally starting to go, right? You all work with me there, right? So he did this, and then on the third week, we returned him to running. Now his running was very modified. I mean, when I put him back in, he was, well actually no, we started this in early in the second week. He was doing light jogging, and I'm talking like this. You know, we want to go easy, and we want to test things out. And then we went from that to where he was light jogging, going up to 75%, coming back down, really testing him out eccentrically, keeping the active range of motion, the straight leg raise going, starting to strengthen a little bit with manual resistance, and then he didn't sprint until football game. So he went a full 3 weeks without a sprint, and then he did fine. He said it was sore afterwards, but I was like, I don't care if you're sore. I just care that you can tolerate it. Next. If you look just underneath that, it goes into that there's a marker there called clinical tip. Goes back into our frequency and our duration. Remarks are all right there. It goes very in depth if you look under adults aged 18 to 65 about even going into MET level. And I'm not going to ask you to worry about MET level in this class. I don't really know that MET level is anywhere on the physical therapy realm. I don't think it belongs there. I think that belongs in the exercise phys realm and with really high level athletes. That's where METs should be.
Did you see?
Now, METs also do really play a part in cardiovascular rehab, but in your standard PT stuff, you're not going to deal with that.
Did you see any on your boards, any Met questions?
I saw no METs. It mentioned METs, but it wasn't there may have been one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I say that now.
Okay.
It wasn't a very complicated question, though. I just can't really remember it exactly. It obviously wasn't that big because it wasn't some of the ones that stand out. I have those for you, trust me. Anyways, you will see that, and METs are important in cardiac rehab, and you need to understand METs there. But if we're talking about rehabbing orthopedics, or we're talking even rehabbing in neuro, I don't think you're going to see a lot of METs. If you look there, the very next thing on page 250 is about warm-ups. Now, without reading anything about warm-ups, what does the term warm-up tell you our goal is?
Warm the body.
It's to warm up the body. Physiological change what? Temperature. I want to physiologically change the temperature of my body, right? And that's what we're doing. That's why we call it a warm-up. Now, if you look right here, a time lag exists between the onset of activity and the bodily adjustments needed to meet the physical requirements of the body. This is so true. And every day I notice my body is really needing more time to feel good about doing something. I mean, there was a time where I could go out and I could just run a 5K and try to PR it. I mean, do the best I could on it. Now I need at least a 5K just to get ready to do a 5K. I mean, and I used to think those people were crazy. They go out and run the course before the race even started. I'd be like, you're gonna have no energy, right? And they're like, man, I can't take off and just go, you know? And if I go back and I look at intensity and duration, I'm like, man, this doesn't sound right at all. You want me to go run the course and then come back and race it? I'm like, yeah, that's what you should do. So what do you think my intensity looks like on my warm-up? Real low, super low. But I'm getting prepped for a different period, right? In the physiological responses, Jim said it, an increase in muscle, well, actually, no, I can't give Jim all the credit. Miranda said this one, in muscle temperature. Next bullet, an increased need for oxygen to meet the energy demands for the muscle. Dilation of the previously constricted capillaries. That's just more, a lot of people say, I start running and so does my nose. I don't know how many people who run who are like experts at the snot rocket. And you have to be, you know. Your patients are gonna get on that bike and things dilate, and guess what's gonna happen in their nose? It's gonna dilate. I mean, this is just a response exercise and people, your nose runs. I mean, I'm telling you.
Seems like when you first take that run, I gotta spit 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I'm a spitter. Oh man, I'm a spitter. I'm a spitter and a snot rocket.
But at the end of it, my mouth is all dry, and I'm thinking, where's that spit?
And just so you know, in an aero bike like this, you can't just go like this because it's bam. I mean, like,
Ew.
yeah, I got off that bike on that triathlon night. It's not just all over.
I did that before when I was dealing with a sinus infection. And it was
Green?
one of those where you blow it out, but you don't get it all out, so it's still like attached to here and to your shoulder.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh, man, I just slide
Just
all
think
over
the
myself.
aerodynamics, though, when you get that all filled
I
up.
know, you fill it up.
Oh, bike riders are nasty.
And what's really bad is that I wear a lot of facial hair most of the time, and it just like gets in there, and I don't know it, and I'm trying to talk to somebody at a race, and they're like, you know, nobody wants to say you got snot on your face. They're just like, you know, you have to be a snot rocket perfectionist. I mean, it's just boom, boom, and it's fast. But
Is that gonna be on the
Stylish.
test?
do what?
Has it ever hit
I-
anyone behind you?
On your practical, you have to come in, and the first thing you have to do is blow me a good snot rocket.
I could.
I'll do it
Ever
really
hit
in a wheelchair.
anybody behind you?
I don't want to talk about that. I've been both the giver and the taker on those kind of deals. So,
I'm never riding. I'm not okay. What if you had your
Yeah.
mouth open?
they can get off of it. I did it to a good friend of mine one time in a race because he was drafting off of me in a run, and it was a real heavy headwind. He was right there, and I just kind of stepped over, boom, and hit him right in the leg.
He was a good friend. He's no longer.
Oh yeah, we're gonna go for a run now. It's a race.
That'd be more incentive to stay beside you.
That's right. Or in front.
That's what they did, that's what they did to keep you from drafting behind them, like.
They do.
Well, what you can do, Paul.
So dilation's a big thing. An increase in venous return. And this is huge because venous return is so weak, right? We know that. You're gonna have patients who have fluid build up around their legs, right? And that's just part of venous insufficiency. And so we exercise them to get venous return going. Think about those ankle pumps. What are they good for? Venous return. So is not a warm-up good to start venous return early? A purpose of a warm-up, though, in addition to physiological responses, the warm-up also prevents or decreases the susceptibility of musculoskeletal system injury and arrhythmias. The big thing about that triathlon the other day was there's a huge push to figure out why people are having sudden cardiac death, SCD, in the swim. And they think it's because they get out there and they blow up their heart rate like from nothing. And listen, you can do that really fast in a swim because think about all the things that are going on when your face is in the water and you really can't breathe, and so you're restricting or you're trying to time it, and then your heart rate skyrockets and people are out there floating
Looks like
because.
Valsalva.
Well, it's like, I caused an arrhythmia and I couldn't control it, and there wasn't, defibrillator real close, or someone to use it, and I'm out there in the middle of the lake.
Yeah, if that happens,
Yeah, how you gonna get them zapped on a kayak?
that's kinda like what happens to me, and if I was in the middle of the lake, I'd be dead. There ain't no way I could make it.
Oh, yeah, you,
No way, no way.
Good.
Cause when that happens.
not with that attitude.
No, but when I get like that, I mean, I can't hardly do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, cause it throws off my heartbeat so bad, and I can't, my blood doesn't, it's really,
Do you think it'd be better if they changed the swimming to, instead of the start somewhere
No,
else?
leave it right there. I don't-
How come they have it to start?
So
Does
people
everybody
don't
go to-
drown,
Huh?
so people don't drown from fatigue. Like, they pull up the bike and they're running, they jump in the water and they're like. So, again, it's rare still, but the thing, what I'm trying to tell you here is look at the chance of arrhythmia when you take your heart rate from near resting up to near maximal. You can't do that, and you have to have something there. I've seen it in 5K people before. You know, I've got a kid out there, and he's running ahead of me, and I catch him, and I see him. And you know what he's doing? He's walking now. You know why? Because he sent his heart rate from near resting to above maximal probably in like, what, 30 seconds? And he tried to sustain it, and he experienced the bonk.
Hit the wall.
It's just, they're done. They can't do any more because their heart rate got up too fast, too early. Guidelines are this: a 10-minute period of total body movement exercises, just like we did at the track. You know, we were only walking a mile. We did well into 10 minutes. Attaining a heart rate that is within 20 beats a minute of the target heart rate. You think either of those two might be a test question? Attaining a heart rate that is within 20 beats of your target. So what am I doing today? Well, I'm gonna do a recovery run. I wanna be about 50% of my max heart rate. So 185 is my max heart rate. I wanna be between 50 and 60%. So at minimum, I'm going to be at around 95 beats a minute. Right? So I need to do a warm-up that's gonna get me close to that. You know what that is? It's a little walking. That's about it. But if I'm going up from there, if I'm going to that 75 to 80%, I need to do a little bit more than walking, don't I? Yeah? Maybe a light jog. Aerobic exercise period. The main consideration when choosing a specific method of training is that the intensity be great enough to stimulate an increase in stroke volume and cardiac output, and to enhance local circulation and aerobic metabolism in the appropriate muscle groups. So it goes back and it tries to say this with specificity in mind, that you are going to do something that challenges two big things here: stroke volume and cardiac output. All right, it's going to increase both of those things. Because if the body doesn't really perceive this as a higher level, it's not going to do that. So you have to do that in the main set. This is your aerobic period. This is what we are doing to exercise a person. It wasn't the warm up. It's not going to be the warm down or the cool down. This is your exercise period. So there's 4 things that we want you guys to be familiar with. And I just leave it in the book. I don't type notes over it because there's no reason for me to type notes over this. You have 4 types of aerobic exercise that we're going to talk about. 1, continuous training. All right, when I do a long run, I'm doing continuous training. I get my heart rate to a certain level, and it's bing, right there. That's where I'm at. I'm not going to change it. I'm going to continue. Continuous exercise. And my time, really right here, is focused on my intensity. If my intensity's low, I can go for a long, long time. I can do that. Continuous training is a sub-maximum energy requirement sustained throughout the training period. Once the steady state is achieved, the muscle obtains energy by means of aerobic metabolism, oxidative phosphorylation, stress is placed primarily on slow twitch fibers. The activity can be prolonged for 20 to 60 minutes without exhausting the oxygen transport system. It can go way longer than that.
Do they know what you'd want your maximum heart rate, or your heart rate to be around? They don't
The
say.
statements here are not real focused, but if you go back to, the VO2 max statement,
Right.
you are trying to do things that affect your VO2 max here, but you're actually gonna be under it. You're gonna be under that 75%. Most people run this at about 60 to 70%, or keep the continuous period to 60 to 70%. A continuous aerobic period should be probably around the 60 to 70%. Now, your book doesn't ever say it this way, but this is what I'm telling you. And I don't test you over that one specifically either. The work rate is increased progressively as training improvements are achieved. So it's not like during that one period, that specific workout, we're not going to change much. We're gonna let them go just like this. Now, as they become more efficient and more aerobic conditioned, we'll increase their intensities.
So their aerobic will still improve even though they're not over the 75%?
They'll improve different things. They won't improve VO2 max. They'll improve different things.
Like what?
Well, a perfect one for, this one would be the ability to burn fat as your primary energy source, to get carbohydrates suppressed and saved, and that you're burning more in the fat level. Another one is bone mineral density. Muscle strength that is specific, not strength as we think of Blake, strength as though we think of, I have the muscles that are strong enough to continue this exercise. So I get endurance in the muscles, and I'm calling it strength because I think people really relate to that. But I'm strong enough in my muscles to run that long. But we know that term is endurance, okay? Still improve in the muscular level. It also improves on the tendinous and the ligamentous levels, right? They're gonna get used to it. You're training yourself to tolerate that exercise load, even though it be low intensity, long duration, that's the load. It's still getting trained to tolerate it for this much time.
So does the fascia ever strengthen?
I would say that there's probably some tolerances built up in the fascia. Like yours though, yours is already gapped open,
No fix.
and that doesn't repair. The leather belt has been stretched and torn, and now you have muscles protruding through. You know what the treatment for that is?
Pain, I'm just kidding.
No, they go in there and they'll do a fasciotomy.
Bill said that doesn't help most of the time though.
Well, has he ever had one?
No, he just saw a patient with one.
I don't know that that's the best way out either. I really don't. But you only hear about the bad cases, right?
True.
You never hear about the good ones.
So you can improve your endurance without improving your VO2 max?
At the muscular level.
Okay, at my
Okay, VO2 max is about lungs, right? So,
Well,
yes, and you become just generally more efficient at tolerating the time, like, I think this might work for you. When people start doing long runs, they don't do a long run necessarily to improve their VO2 max at first. What they're doing is they're learning to be on their feet. When I take a guy for his first 2.5 hour run, he's not doing this to learn how to improve his VO2 max. He's doing this to improve his time on his feet. If Josh and I go for a long ride, it's really not to improve our VO2 max, it's to improve our ischial tuberosity tolerance in the saddle, right? I mean, that's it. I mean, your VO2 max is gonna improve in other ways, and we're gonna address those here in just a minute. But not necessarily with the continuous bout. It does improve, and just like the statement said right here, right? The work rate is increased progressively as training improvements are achieved. And so as you can tolerate it, my first time I trained for half marathon, I was doing 8 and 9 mile runs, and I remember going to church and sitting there and thinking, my knees hurt. Not like I have a osteoarthritis. I was just sore. Everything ached. I was just achy, and I'd be achy for 2 or 3 days. And then the second time I trained for a half marathon, I wasn't. And now, I mean, a 20 miler, I'm not that sore. Because, I mean, I built it up. But
You
if
built
I
up
ever
the
digress,
endurance, like your muscles and ligaments and
Right.
stuff, you built up the endurance and then.
yeah. But my VO2 max wasn't my focus. It was other things. You have to build the structures that support the VO2 max. The VO2 max supports the structures on the backside, but VO2 max is not always your intent. It's not your goal all the time. Sometimes it's to help build the other structures. So even in a patient, I mean, who's gonna walk 20 miles in their store, we're not so much worried about their VO2 max as we are, what'd you say about your legs earlier? How'd they feel? They hurt, don't they? So we're talking, how do I build my legs to tolerate that? Because a lot of times it's just about tolerance, and that is endurance in the textbook term, but, I mean, the way I kind of try to get you guys to understand is tolerance. Right. That's not a textbook thing though, so. I put this in here, in the healthy individual, continuous training is the most effective way to improve endurance. Guy doesn't, again, no VO2 max, but endurance. Alright, so the next one is interval training. So I compared continuous training to like my long run. I'm just going out there, I'm doing a long run for 2 hours and I'm doing nothing. Interval training is very different. Interval training, they're calling it interval. Interval, that word interval means there's a rest. Okay? There's a recovery or a rest period. That's what that word interval means. So with this type of training, the work exercise is followed by a properly prescribed what? Rest interval or recovery interval. So let's look at it like this. It's a really good looking knee.
Well, you should have told him thank you. Or Jim.
Was that Jim's?
Yeah, that's Jim's knee.
Did he draw it?
No,
Oh.
that's just a picture of his knee we drew.
Alright, so here I go into my interval training. What I'm gonna see is, and some of you have done this, maybe on a treadmill or a stationary bike or an elliptical, you've picked the interval. And what does it look like? It means, and I'm just giving you an example here. This is not fine in every way, okay? This is an example. That means I'm going to go to the track and I'm gonna do my warm-up. And it's gonna take me 10 to 15 minutes to do my warm-up. And then I'm going to run a 400 meter. And I'm going to do my 400 meter at 95% of my max heart rate 16 times. And I'm going to have an interval of 400 meters of easy jog or walk. Okay? That's my thing. That's a workout right there. That's a big workout, but that's a workout. In interval. And so what do? I run 400 meters pretty hard, almost at sprint, and then I walk for 400 meters. And it's gonna take me about, me personally, say, this would be a good day, 90 seconds of work, 5 minutes gonna do 90 seconds of work, and I'm gonna do 5 minutes of recovery. And I'm gonna repeat that 16 times.
I understand that.
It's gonna take me 90 seconds to run my 400 meters.
You can run 400 meters in 90
That's
seconds?
actually really slow.
Thanks, Jessica.
400 meters?
Well, I know people
Because
that,
usually like 100 meters, if you're really good, you can do it like 4 seconds.
The people who are running 400 meters fast are running it
I've
in
seen it in like.
49
Yeah,
seconds.
49 seconds.
Yeah, that's the studs. Less than half of what I'm doing. Jessica said I was slow.
That's me, but.
So you're running all out at 90 seconds, and you're
Yeah, this is
walking,
the interval though. You
then
see
you're
what-
walking at 5.
Here's the interval,
5 or 6
right here. This is what's interval about it. Your specificity, right, is I'm running 400 meters, and then I do the same 400 meters, but I'm walking it, and I'm taking about 5 minutes to do it. And guess what? I recover, repeat, recover, repeat, recover, repeat. This is just one time. I mean, you can put somebody on a stationary bike. One of my favorite bike interval things, and this is my favorite way to do intervals because it's easy, is I will get on a very flat course and I'll sprint for 90 seconds. And then I'll do 90 seconds of just like coasting. I'm in my little ring, I'm just spinning. And then I repeat that sprint, but I only do 60 seconds. And then I do 60 seconds of easy. And then I do 30 seconds, and then I do 30 seconds of easy. I do 5 minutes of full recovery, and then I do it again. This is actually more closer to what would be a circuit workout, but there you go. Or circuit interval, actually. But that's an interval. Intervals really focus on high intensity stuff, low intensity. High intensity, low intensity. And so it looks like this. High intensity, low. High, low. So what do you think your duration periods are? Short, long, short, long. Yeah? Does that make sense?
And what is the main goal of this? Is that in working on your VO2 max?
This will work in your VO2 max.
That's pretty much how I exercise.
Because look at what my intensity
Well,
was
it's like,
right here. Around 95%, right?
I'm gonna walk a little bit.
Now what'd you say?
I said that's pretty much how I exercise like all the time. I'm like,
Okay.
okay, time to slow it down, slow it down. And then, oh man, I gotta go again.
Yeah, and it's very good. What we see about some types of interval training is that it gets into the anaerobic stuff a little bit more, right? I mean, we are not doing oxidative phosphorylation, are we? Because we're never getting there, except for in our recovery. And the whole thing we've spent in oxidative phosphorylation, but we had brief moments of what? Glycolysis? And so what we find out is, it comes out and says, this is better for certain things. VO2 max is one of them. If you were really concerned with losing weight, this is a good one, but so is this one. They both have very unique benefits, and so we want to include both of them. We don't want to do every day as intervals. We don't want to do every day as continuous. You see where I'm going here? I'm building a structured plan that says some days are continuous, some days are intervals, and then we look at the next one.
Well, the whole thing's interval, because you change from one thing to another.
If you looked at the mesocycle, oh, I dropped that word, didn't I?
Yeah, it did.
We'll come back to that. But if I look at just the individual day. Next one on there is circuit training. This thing has really gotten big. You know who's made this big? What was that? Curves. You remember Curves? Some of you ladies attended Curves. Curves was the predecessor to what is now the even bigger monster in fitness called CrossFit. It's the bane of Blake's existence.
Are you
Stupid
saying Bane
CrossFit
like
people.
Batman?
I don't know if that's the, I mean, I don't know, does that come from that?
Well, Bane
No.
was
I know he was the bad guy at
Yeah.
last, but I don't know if but maybe.
Kinda
they-
means the same thing. but-
Yeah. This though, I mean, this is where people do what? They go in and they have, who's a CrossFitter? Anybody?
I
I
did it-
have some friends that are.
I did it for-
Nobody's gonna say it in front of Blake, cause he's like, come on, look.
I did it for a month and then I about died.
Well, so a CrossFit workout, I have a friend who does CrossFit.
You go to max fatigue every.
Yeah,
workout.
you do. And so we go over here and I hate to erase Jerry's
My
stuff
friends,
here.
my friend's hands are ripped, like, she rips them off every day and like.
I thought you meant like muscly.
So we start talking
Yeah, like from the bar.
circuit
Oh, you could get a better grip with
and we think about CrossFit and here's what he tells me we do. Or he tells me they do. We don't do it, they do it. He said, we gotta do push-ups, we gotta do pull-ups,
Burpees.
we gotta do burpees,
I hate burpees.
we gotta do,
Wall
swing
balls.
swing a sledgehammer into a tractor tire, I don't know what they call that,
You got wall balls.
and sit-ups,
I hated wall balls.
right? And we're gonna do, 20, 25, 25, 25, 25, and you gotta do all that 5 times.
Well, they'll give
That's
you,
their workout, and literally, that's what they work, they do this like on a chalkboard, and they write it up there, and that's what you go in and you do that day.
they'll do like 40, they do it on time.
Yeah.
You get like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you do it that 3 times, or you do that 5 times, or some can do it like 8 times.
Yeah.
It's like they
So what does it tell you
document,
about their fitness level?
it's up there.
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah.
And so that's the goal.
But they're going
is-
like lunatics. There's no rest in any of that.
No, you just go now you can rest, but what's gonna happen if you rest?
You slow, you don't.
You're
get-
gonna have less total circuits.
And your partner's screaming, come on!
Of course they are.
Cause we had a
Who
partner.
wants
They
a
would scream.
lifting partner that's?
They were nuts. They were nuts.
Good job. No, I want somebody screaming in my face.
Right.
I want their spit hitting me in the eyeball.
I had this farmer guy
It's
that's
not
screaming.
either one.
Or snot.
So here you go with continuous. Several exercise modes can be used involving large and small muscle groups and a mix of static or dynamic effort. Use of circuit training can improve strength and endurance. Check this out, this is huge, by stressing both the aerobic and anaerobic systems. Because it takes an aerobic, if you do this, like Paul said, if this is 45 minutes worth of this, you are certainly getting an aerobic workout. But look at the finer picture here. Push-ups, pull-ups, burpees, tractor tires, sit-ups. You're doing these things, and are you affecting the aerobic system here? Or the anaerobic systems? Because look at the muscle groups you're using. Big, 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 big muscle groups, right? Yeah? And so it's a very different approach. And then they have this thing called, and I know I'm way over time here, I apologize, circuit interval training, which is an interval version of this. Like I was trying to go with Paul and say, they could rest, and so they may do that. They may take a 5-minute rest after each set here, after each big group. They may sit down for 5 minutes and rest and then do it again. And so it talks about how it elicits a very different type of response. Last thing here is the cool down period. And what I want you to understand about a cool down or a warm down is that a person should do it for 5 to 10 minutes. And check out the word that it uses here. Consists of total body movements and,
Static stretching.
there you go. Have I mentioned static stretching in warm-up? Did I mention that? No, I did not. Don't be hung up on my test because of static stretching in a warm-up. If you see static stretching, it's bad in the warm-up. You know where it's good? The cool down. And that's why in this class I don't say warm down. I really do like the term warm down better. But I don't do that because people are like warm, 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 cool, cool, cool. And they can stick with static and cool, but they can't stick with static and warm.
Back in the day, that's all we did.
I know.
Static stretching.
I know.
Football practice and stuff.
You know, back in the day, we used to put leeches on people. Right? The goal, there's, on page 256, please be familiar with impairments, goals, and plan of care. It's important here to know that it's individual and it's specific. It needs to be individual and specific. But review box 711 in learning how to deploy this. It's really pretty critical that you have an idea on what to do to send this into motion. One other thing, before you kill that page, is it says down there under goals, prevents thromboembolic episodes, pneumonia, and anybody wants to take a stab at that next word? Atelectasis. And you're like, what's atelectasis? Does anybody remember that from David's class? What do you remember from David's class? Shall we have a quiz?
I remember hearing it. I don't remember what it is.
Did he cut, the word looks familiar? This is a big word for acute care people.
Is that what they get after lung surgery or something?
Well, not necessarily lung surgery, any kind of surgery, they can develop, pneumonia's big. You walk people to avoid pneumonia. And atelectasis, a complete or partial collapse of lung or lobe of a lung develops when the tiny air sacs within the lung become deflated. Symptoms include difficulty breathing, which is dyspnea, remember that word? Rapid shallow breathing, coughing, low-grade fever. You know why it's important for PT and RTs to work together on post-surgical patients? Pneumonia, atelectasis. These are big conditions after surgery. And so RT's in there, they're like, okay, you gotta breathe, breathe, breathe. If you've ever had surgery, I had my appendix out. And you know what? I got an RT shoving one of those spirometers in my mouth saying, you gotta blow this thing up here. And I'm like, why? Oh, because I don't want pneumonia or atelectasis. I didn't like that though. It was hard work. And then the PTs come and they're like, we're gonna watch you. And I'm like, no.
Or they have the one that's like opposite, instead of blowing in and get the ball, like you got sucked so hard.
Oh, no thanks. All right, so you have your assignment. And on Wednesday, we're gonna start talking about how to strengthen. Blake's favorite is ready. Jessica, next week I'm going back to track. I'm gonna get faster.
Is that your real, that's what you run again?
Oh my God.
I just thought, I went.
Who handed you the shovel this morning?
No, but I wanted to tell you, I went to school with some girls that can run it in like a minute.
So
And,
in other words, now you're getting chipped.
No.
Oh,
but
man.
I just thought, because you're, you do a lot of stuff, I just thought you'd be a lot faster.
you'd be better.
I just thought you'd be faster.
Listen to Usain Bolt over here.
So what you thought of, you was just a little
400 meter time lectures.